Hey, Claire.
Hello, Dean. Thanks for having me.
Very welcome to have you here, Claire. Um, Tell the audience a little bit about you.
Well, thank you, Dean. I am Clare Price, a founder and CEO of Octane Growth Systems, and we are a CMO collective of about 12 people who focus on changing the way small business marketing is done. And the way we do that is by the use of the Octane Growth System.
Well, then here's our hypothetical. Okay. A client has engaged you, it's a new client. Today's day one. You've never worked with this client before. Talk about what you would expect to see or do in like the first 3 months of that engagement.
Great question, Jean. Thank you so much. I'm going to make a couple of assumptions in answering this question.
Mhm.
When you say I've never worked with the client before, I am going to assume that we've had a couple of discussions and there's been a proposal. So we
Yes.
have some kind of structure and framework for this first day together. And I think the way I would lay out the first 3 months is this. The first 30 days is really about learning and discovery. We have to really understand what's happening with that client from a standpoint of what's working, what isn't working. We do typically do a full marketing audit at that point to see where the marketing is, what success they've had, also to understand how their people and their partnerships are working so that we can start to put together a plan. So month one would be discovery.
Mhm.
Month two would be planning, and month three would be execution. Now, that for small business owners, that sounds like a long time because they don't want to wait for 90 days to get something going. So I do want to tell that audience that it's not waiting 90 days to get something going. We start rolling and working for you from day one, but we put some key strategic pieces in place so that as we expand the work that we're doing, we get more success with it.
All right. I like that. Okay. So, Don, hi.
Hi, Dean.
Tell me a little bit about you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on today. My name is
Sure.
Don McLean. Some people joke just like American Pie. You know, I'm
Yes.
sure you've heard the song, but I'm
I literally made that joke in the green room while we were waiting for you to join the session with Claire. So sorry about that.
absolutely, yeah. People ask me all the time, but I put it out there, and I
Yeah.
love it. And my
Sure.
dad was Don McLean, and so was my grandpa, so we had it first. But anyways, yeah, I am the founder and president of McLean Media. We've been around for about 3 years now.
Mhm.
I spent about 17 years so far in industry doing public relations, content marketing, those sort of things. But I just realized that, I have some ways that I can do this better, bring better value to clients, be a little more nimble, a little more flexible. So for me, that works really well. And I support clients across life sciences, wholesale insurance, high tech manufacturing, AI, as well as automotive. So it spans the gamut a bit. I focus more on B2B marketing communications, but again, very happy to be here today.
Okay. So the same scenario then, right? So
Absolutely.
sales process is done.
Yep.
Time to start work. Today's day one. You're looking at the first 30, 60, 90. You're trying to, you probably, by now you've probably planned out like what you would normally try to like find, problems you'd go looking for, quick
Absolutely.
hits you might aim for. What do the first couple or 3 months look like?
Yeah, so one of the things that I focus on is the audit. So audit is usually a first thing. Sometimes I actually do an audit before I'm even engaged with the client, because for me personally, I just want to bring as much value as possible.
Right.
So what I'll do is actually just dive deep and learn about them. So as I'm part of that sales process, I have some really deep, strong conversations and make it feel like we're working together before we even start working together. So for me personally, that's one of my goals, is just building that authenticity and trust and always providing value first. So, I like to do that. But The next thing I do after I audit the things that I can see externally, when I'm able to come internal to a business, I really try to read everything. That's one of my superpowers, I guess you'd say, when I start with a company, is just read as much as possible. Read the things I don't even understand. If it's engineering documentation, I'll go ahead and read that. If they're building us, I work with this one company that builds CNC machines.
Right.
So I read as much as possible about the CNC machining process, even outside of what they're doing, so I can understand more deeply about the industry. I work a lot in pharmaceuticals, so understanding the entire FDA process and how do you take a drug to market from phase 1 all the way through post-marketing? What are all those steps? So then when I go to support that client, I can really understand their business and how they fit in to that pipeline, and help them out. And then after all of those things, I really look at the gaps first. And sometimes when you're starting these relationships, it's not as clear, right? Sometimes you have to, as people like to say, build the plane while you're flying it. So
Right.
it's one of those things that you would love everything to be a perfect scenario, but you have to take those elements and say, I need to I need to do this one thing that the CEO is really passionate about right now. But as I'm doing that tactical execution, I need to be building this bigger strategy for them to get them on the right path. So it's a bit of a mix for me. So the first 90 days is usually, investing a little bit more time than I would plan overall on my normal month to month basis. But it's just so valuable to ingrain yourself in the company at first. So that's important for me.
So let's imagine that it's still day one and I'm the CEO at the client site. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we're having our first meeting as like now in this arrangement. And I
Yeah.
say, so, you work with a lot more heads of companies than I work with heads of marketing.
Yeah.
So as CEO, is there anything that I should start doing or anything that I should stop doing to make sure that we get maximum value out of the spend that we're putting into you for the next year?
Yeah. From a CEO perspective, I would say
Right.
just be open to communication. Some CEOs will say, like, I hired you, go off, do your thing.
Mhm.
Don't bother me unless there's an issue, which I love. I can do that. But the CEO knows the business, I feel like, the best at times. And they can tell stories, and they can tell me different nuances that you might not otherwise get, or it might take a lot longer to get to that point. On the same tokens, some CEOs like to be a bit more humble, and they don't realize that. And because I focus more on communications and public relations as well, I'm always bringing this as a key element into my strategies, for companies. I want to make sure that I develop this RISE program for CEOs and other thought leaders within the company to help elevate their brand alongside of the company brand. And the main thing is, people buy from people, right? They don't necessarily, especially in the B2B space, they don't necessarily say like, I have to have this one thing over this other thing. They usually say, this is my problem. I need the right person to help me through this with the solution. So really elevating them as the leader in this space is usually one of my goals. And so I like to, make sure when I have a conversation with any CEO that they understand that balance and how they fit into the business, and that I might have to elevate them a bit more. But in order to do that, I also want to make sure that they're not alienating their team, that they're not saying that I'm going to stand up here and get all the credit, So I make sure to, especially in like a space like life sciences, where folks are a lot more humble, they're a lot more focused on the research.
Right.
They still need to understand that, somebody does have to step up. Somebody does have to be the face of this. And you can still thank everybody on your team. you can still push, the people forward, and you can grow stronger because of it. So for me, with the CEO, it's really, like I said, open communication.
Claire, how about you? What do you wish CEOs would do or stop doing so that you could be as effective as possible in the time you have working with that client?
So I appreciate the ability to work directly with the CEO on an ongoing basis. And we have, as part of the Octane growth system, we have what we call a client collaboration model. I came out of old school consulting. This is where I started my career. And it was very typical to go into an organization, have a couple of discovery meetings, and then run, as I say, behind the black curtain and come back and present a plan or present a roadmap. And I don't think that's effective in today's environment at all. I think that the team needs to be collaborating with the fractional team. So I would really ask the CEO to be engaged. We put together an engagement schedule for the executive team so that the executive team knows exactly how many minutes per week they're going to need to spend with us in order to get the results that they're looking for. So we're not asking them to devote a ton of time to what we're doing, but we do
Right.
ask them to be engaged at key points so that we can really drive the value together and collaborate with them. And to second Don's point about telling stories and having that institutional tribal knowledge, that's invaluable. We really need to have all of that. So that becomes, I think, a central focus. If a CEO says to me, go do your thing and come back with results, that's going to be a red flag to me, that's going to be a very not a successful engagement. Or to make it a successful engagement, it's going to need a lot of work to bring together that collaboration that we're looking for.
Okay, so I'm still the CEO in this hypothetical, okay? And I say, Claire, I'm looking at my marketing team, my staffers right now. There's been, supervision, there's been management even, but you're the first leadership level person we've had in marketing. So I'm looking at them here on your day one, and I'm trying to think about what they're going to look like or how that team's going to be different or better at day 365. What's that team going to be like on day
Great
365?
question. Really appreciate that question, Dean. So the first thing we're going to do, and I'm going to borrow a term from one of my channel partners, EOS, that a few of you may be familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
We want to do an accountability chart. We want to find out not just globally in the entire company, but focused on marketing. Do we have the right people in the right seats already? And if we don't have the right people in the right seats, how can we adjust that so that we have key people who can really run the organization? And I think that there are three areas that we want to focus on to build out a strong marketing team. We need a visionary in the marketing team. We need a strategist. We need somebody who's going to be looking around the corner about how marketing is changing, how the business is changing, so that marketing can get ahead of the curve instead of reacting to what's happening. We need someone who is an executor, who is going to be able to pull everything together, keep it moving, keep it working, create a sustainable process and a sustainable approach to marketing. We need somebody who's got the creative quirk, who can come up with the interesting ideas that are going to kind of reimagine or re-engage the audience that may or may not be getting, maybe a little stale around the corners with the message or with the approach that we're taking. I think those would be some of the key roles that I would look for.
And Don, what do you think? How's that team going to look different? I mean, there's a lot to change potentially in any marketing team, right? There's the what roles are being filled or not filled, period. Then there's the mix between full-time and freelancer. There's the mix between agency and in-house. Right? How does the team normally change over the course of a year?
Yeah, for any team that I come into on a fractional side, I don't want to be a bull in a china shop. I don't want to necessarily go in there and rip apart their whole existence as they know it, because to me, that's just not how you gain trust. So
Right.
personally, I like to go in and sit side by side with these folks, mostly virtually these days. But, it's good to, understand how hard they're already working. A lot of these folks are putting a lot of time into something, whether it's strategic or not. We'll figure that out, right? But they're putting a lot of hard work in, so that should be acknowledged. And in terms of looking at the team, what I'd like to do after I really understand what people are doing is just start looking at where the gaps are. Saying like, I see that, you're writing these good things, but we're not promoting it. We're not doing anything with that. Or maybe all of these topics are too disparate. There's no actual goal here. We're just putting out content for the sake of having to say we published something.
Right.
So, personally, I like to sit side by side and understand. And then as I'm building the strategy out, I don't necessarily want to be the person that just says all of these great things and then makes the team execute. I like to be in there and execute alongside of these folks as well. So ensuring that, based on what people are most interested in or what they have, where they bring the most value, what can they do, and is it different than what they're doing now? That is where it's easier to help adjust someone's role. If I just say like, oh, you're not necessarily doing that properly, you need to go over here and do that, it won't land as well, right? So
Right.
I like to just work together and make it a mutual decision that you're really interested in social media. Great. I'll help guide you along the way. You might not have done it before, but these are the resources that we have at the moment. Let's go ahead and do that. And I work with a lot of smaller to mid-sized businesses who, some people are put in those roles without having prior marketing experience. So you are bringing a mentorship model too as part of this fractional work. And that's where I like to bring my adaptable approach as I've spoke to.
Okay. So I've got a fill in the blank question. I've got two actually, but I'll
Okay.
ask this one for you and Claire, and then we'll go back. So this is so easy. And by easy, I mean it's really easy for me to ask it. It's going to be way harder for you to
Right.
answer it. Many clients just don't understand.
Yeah. Many clients don't understand, well, a lot of things. There's even things that our fractional selves don't
Sure.
necessarily understand. What I personally say is I've been with a lot of different clients that say our competitor is doing this, I need to do the same thing. And for me, just mirroring for the sake of mirroring a competitor is absolutely the wrong approach. Most of the clients I work with, all of them right now that I'm working with, have a great company culture. They have a very unique reason why they do well in the business that they're in, whether they're a contract research organization or, like I said, a wholesale insurance company. They really understand their business well, and they're not like other companies. So to say that they would have to do a trade show just like this other company is the wrong way to approach it. I always like to say, understand what these companies are doing, and then identify the white spaces. What are those companies not saying? What are they afraid to say? What might seem like something that you've said a million times, but you haven't actually shared it in a way that's palatable for a more general audience. I like to take all of those things and bring that sort of outsider approach with the insider knowledge and meld those things together. So, yeah, personally, mirroring for the sake of mirroring, not a great choice.
And Claire, what do you think? Most clients just don't understand what?
They don't understand why their customers buy from them.
Yeah.
They understand who their customers are, they understand where they are, but they don't really understand as well as they could what is the motivation and the value the client attributes to the products and services they're buying. And that's something that we spend a lot of time focusing on when we're working with clients, is really understanding that why. why they buy and why they're going to buy from you. And the other thing that they really don't understand is where that client goes to get the information they need to make a buying decision. I think there's a lot of a knee-jerk response to the popular ways to do marketing, to do digital marketing in particular, whether it's Google Ads or social media or some other kind of SEO. I'd say those are
Right.
the big three that people always say, oh, we got to do all these three. Well, here's the thing. That may not be where your client is going to get the information, not just general information, but the information they need to make a buying decision. I'll give you a great example. I was working with a SaaS client a couple of years ago who was doing all of those things and doing them well and not getting any results. They had trickle of leads, certainly not the number of leads they needed. And when they did get a lead, they had trouble converting that lead into a client or a customer. And the issue was this. They were selling software to K to 12 school administrators, principals, public information officers, and that was not where those clients were going to get buying decision information. They were going to their local their local school and trade associations. So one of the big changes we made was shifting their marketing budget from those traditional digital marketing tactics to really focusing almost 100% on trade show marketing, and got amazing results of being able to help the company grow from 2 million to 7 million in 2.5 years.
Okay, Claire, I got another the other of my two fill in the blank questions, and this is about fractional CMOs,
Okay.
specifically about new fractional CMOs, right? So, a fractional CMO starting out today is going to be surprised about what?
Surprised about how many resources they don't have. Because most of the fractional CMOs that I know that have come out of a typical corporate CMO role are
Mhm.
used to large teams and the
Yeah.
ability to delegate a lot of work to to those team members. And what I hear from the people that have come onto my team and from other fractional CMOs around is two things. One, they need to invent their own process and system because they no longer can rely on the one that was developed for their company. And two, they really need to develop a new network of marketing support and marketing vendors and marketing just an entire community to help them get the work done, because again they can no longer rely on their internal teams to do that work for them. So I think that's been the biggest aha for me, as well as from a lot of the people I talk to.
They thought they were running 100 miles an hour in the corporate job. Turns out they were on a train going 100 miles an hour.
Exactly.
And Don, what do you think? A new fractional CMO putting out their shingle today is going to be surprised by what?
Yeah, there's two things for me, Dean. One is finding the balance. You can be blessed with a lot of work, and then all of a sudden you realize, oh, now maybe I'm working a little bit more than I expected to be, or something like that. So personally, I think that I was just talking to someone about this, finding the time in your day. Where are you spending all your time? Doing a time audit and really understanding, am I using this time in the day most effectively for these clients? So for me personally, I spend every dollar like I would spend my own. I really understand where every bit of my time is going throughout the day. And this is partially why I wanted to be a fractional CMO. I wanted to take my kids to school and I wanted to pick them up from school. And I wanted to be a better dad. And so from that perspective, I've really focused on finding the balance. And the second part to that too is marketing and sales can be different sometimes. Sometimes they're very closely linked, but sometimes people come into a fractional role and they might not have been linked before. But if you're a fractional CMO, you have to be good doing your own sales. You have to you have to be that business development person, and you have to constantly be knocking on doors. And personally, I use LinkedIn for all of that. I think
Right.
a strategic approach to LinkedIn, proper messaging that's not spammy, and that's how we connected, Dean. So I absolutely love that. having a great content calendar on LinkedIn and knowing how to action against that, and making sure that when you are doing that sales, you have something to back it up. Because you want to say you're a great fractional CMO, but if you're not doing your own marketing and your own communications, you're not practicing what you preach, right? So for me, it's really balancing those two.
So speaking of how someone ends up becoming a guest on this podcast and LinkedIn and so on. Now, every guest picks their own time slot. We record on Thursdays, but there are time slots on Thursdays, and everyone picks their own, which means while everyone's a fractional CMO or in the fractional CMO space, except me, and I am not a fractional CMO, who you end up with as a co-guest is random. And so what we do now is, since we're randomly putting together fractional CMOs who don't know each other, we have each fractional CMO guest ask the other guest any question you want. And so, Don, you can ask Claire any question you want. Go for it. And Claire's going to ask you one back. So
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. And Claire, it's been a pleasure talking with you and Dean today. My main question is just, what are you most proud of in the work that you've done so far as a fractional CMO?
Oh, appreciate the question, Don. Thank you so much. I would say that I am most proud of I'll say two things. One is seeing the kind of growth that we're able to help our clients achieve. A lot of times our clients come to us because they've had flat revenues for a couple of years and they really want to break through that ceiling, and being able to help them do that is really, really just very gratifying and very humbling, because it changes lives. When people's revenue changes and their business starts to grow and they can add people, they can add teams, they can provide more for their family or their community, it really does, isn't just changing, their business, it's really changing more than one person's life. And I think the other thing that I just find joy in being a fractional CMO is mentoring. A lot of times I'll come into an organization where there are younger people who maybe the CEO has an eye on to grow into a larger role within the company. And in one case, I was mentoring someone who was 2 years out of college, and the CEO really felt she could grow into a marketing director role. And so I was able to really mentor her and help her in that growth journey. So those would be the two things that really just light me up.
I love
Claire,
that.
what's your question for the random fractional CMO that I've put you into this episode with?
So my question to Dawn is, what is the biggest aha moment you've had since becoming a fractional CMO?
Oh my goodness. That is such a great question, Claire. The biggest aha moment. Shoot, I have to sit back and think about that for a second. There are so many moments. I think one of the things that kept me from being a fractional CMO for a number of years, and everything happens at the right time for the right reason, right? But one of the things that sort of kept me from starting on my fractional CMO journey is really understanding some of the things that I didn't know about just setting up a business, and it was, getting the accounting right and making sure that, the taxes are, properly planned for throughout the year, and hiring people, and, making offers, and then doing the sales process and balancing all of those things while you're working in the business. And I talked to somebody about this, and, I had the idea. I registered an LLC many years before I actually started. And they said, just schedule a meeting. Just schedule a meeting with an accountant. Just schedule a meeting with a lawyer. And those are, two things that was like, I don't have to do it all myself. That was a little bit of an aha moment for me to be able to, start my own journey. And for me, once I did that and got everything in place and had a system for all of those things, so I don't have to think about it, it really allowed me to take all of the processes that I've built over the years, working for these other amazing agencies, amazing companies, and bring them to life on a bigger scale. And since doing that, I've been able to, hire my first full-time employee, which I'm really excited about. I talked before about doing a time audit. I understand where all my time is at, and I've been able to use that time to write a book. And I'm getting ready to release a book called The In Crowd for LinkedIn Mastery, and it's a PR focus on thought leadership for entrepreneurs and executives across any industry. And so it's amazing what one listening and what hearing one person's advice that hits at the right time, can do just to open those floodgates. So thank you for the question.
So those are great questions, by the way. Thanks, guys. I'm always curious what people are going to ask each other. You'd be surprised. It's crazy. So, Don, it's time to wind down. Who should be contacting you these days, and what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to really anybody that's listening, or whether you catch this on TikTok or you're on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you're at. As Claire mentioned, if you need some mentoring help, I'm happy to offer some advice. You can follow me on LinkedIn. But I also speak a lot with entrepreneurs and executives that, like I said, are in the B2B spaces. They have some new technology. Maybe they're working with AI. They're in life sciences. They're in insurance, those sorts of areas. I'd love to talk to you, and more than happy to bring you some fresh strategies.
And get in touch with you at...
Get in touch with me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn.com/in/Donald F. McLean, McLean.
And Claire, how about you? Who should be contacting you these days, and how?
The best person to contact me is someone who has had flat revenues for the last couple of years with their company, maybe grown 10% or significantly less than they want to grow, and they don't want to carry that same situation into 2025. Now's the time to get a hold of us and let us do a marketing audit for you, find out what some of the issues are that you're facing, and then hopefully help you solve them.
All right. Guys, thank you so much for being here. Thanks, Claire, and thanks, Don. And Don, since it's your dad and your grandfather, are you like Don McLean III?
Not technically. No,
Fair
different middle names, sir.
Fair enough. All right. Thanks, guys. And thanks for watching, everyone. And we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.